Hi, welcome to another Papetti Math YouTube video. If you haven't already, you could go ahead and you could hit that subscribe button down below. Otherwise, let's stay tuned for exercise number 3 found in lesson 4, Finding the Zeros by Completing the Square of chapter 10 in your workbook. So if we're taking a look at exercise number 3 now, it says now find the zeros of each quadratic using the method of factoring. So this is going to be, if you take a note right here, look at part A here, and look at part A in exercise 3. Look at part B in exercise 3, and then look at part B in exercise 2. So we're going to now solve these same two equations, but instead of completing the square, we're going to use the method of factoring that we saw in lesson number 1 in this chapter. So in order to factor, again, we want to make sure our equation is set equal to 0, which it is, and then we want to find two numbers that multiply to 15 and combine to get 2. So I'm going to start off by putting an x in the front of each parenthesis because x times x will give me x squared. And then my two numbers that multiply to 15. Well, we have 15 and 1, but we can't get a 2 from a 15 and 1. Oh, but we have 5 and 3. So I'm going to fill in 5 and 3. Now I need my signs. They need to multiply to a negative 15 and combine to get a negative 2. So that means my 5 has to be the negative, my 3 the positive. Now that it's factored, remember from lesson 1 in this chapter, that we want to set each factor equal to 0. And by setting each factor equal to 0, we could find each of the solutions to our quadratic. What we want to do on this left side is we want to add 5 to both sides and get x equals 5. And we'll subtract 3 on the right side to get x equal negative 3. If we take a look back at exercise 2 now, did we get x equals 5 and x equals negative 3? Oh, we did. Oh my goodness, look at that. We got x equals 5 and negative 3, and down here we got 5 and negative 3. So it doesn't matter which method you use when your answers are integers. You could choose either method, whichever one is easier for you, and you'll get the same answer. Maybe it only works with that one. Let's see if it also works on part B. So again, on part B, what you want to do first is you want to make sure that this equation here is equal to 0. So let's subtract 35 to make sure that this equation is equal to 0. And we'll be left with x squared plus 2x minus 35 is equal to 0. Now that our equation is equal to 0, we're going to find two numbers that multiply to 35, and those same two numbers will combine to give me a positive 2. So 35, well, it's 35 and 1, and then the only other two numbers that multiply 35 are 5 and 7. So 5 and 7, we need to multiply now to negative 35, so one of them has to be negative, and they have to combine to a positive 2, which means my 7 is going to be positive, my 5 will be negative because 7 minus 5 will give me that positive 2. Now that I have my factored quadratic, I want to set each factor equal to 0. So I have x minus 5 equals 0, and I have x plus 7 is equal to 0. Solving the left side, I'm going to add 5 to both sides, and I'll have x equals 5 as one solution, and I'll subtract 7 from both sides on the right, and I'll have x equal to negative 7 on the right. Let's take a look back at exercise 2 now and see if we got x equals 5 and negative 7 by completing the square. And yes, we did. By using a completely different method to solve this quadratic, we got the same two exact answers. So this just goes to show that there are multiple ways to solve a math problem, which is going to come in very handy into the future of your study of quadratics. You might not always be able to use every method, but you'll definitely be able to choose a lot of the time.